Okay, we are back looking at Sugar, episode 3, Shibuya Crossing. This one written by Mark Pesovich and David Rosen, directed by Fernando Moraes. This episode picks up right where episode 2 left off. Sugar rescues Melanie from Stallings after Stallings busted into Teresa's house. We learn in a conversation after Sugar poses as a parole officer to rescue Melanie that Melanie has been making a habit of helping women get away from their abusive husbands, like Teresa, like Carmen, and Clifford, who we discovered in a dead in a car back in the first episode. Apparently, Olivia, who's the one who's missing, was helping Melanie with these situations. We learned in a flashback that Olivia did, in fact, kill Clifford. Melanie was there to help. But we get a different story from Melanie based on what we hear her say and what we see in the flashback. So Sugar is trying to reconcile those things. Meanwhile, Kenny and Davy is still trying to get some dirt on Sugar. So they enlist the support. They seduce the support from NSA agent Everett, perhaps. Also, at the end, Sugar attends the Society of Polyglots party, which really is just a chance for Ruby to check in on what may be a network of spies who may be doing some good or benevolent work around the world. And John tells her about Shibuya Crossing in Japan, which is a place he likes to visit. Ruby dismisses most of what he says and what's in his notebook. Then after he leaves, Ruby contacts a Dr. Vickers and is concerned that Sugar is onto Stallings and starts deleting his history. So Ruby is connected to Stallings, connected to something that Sugar is trying to solve. What is that connection? What does it mean? Why are we back on this? As you put in your piece, why are we back on this trope again? A lot of things to dissect here in episode 3. Let's start there.
Yeah, so you want to start with the Ruby Stallings thing? Is that what you're saying?
Anywhere you want to go.
Mhm.
This was I have to again give you credit. The headline of your piece on the site was episode 3, Shibuya Crossing, a busy intersection. That was wordplay, deserves like an award for headline writing.
Thanks. It's like almost not wordplay, but I think it was.
Right.
Yeah, Shibuya Crossing. People don't know. I mean, if you watch the episode, you would know because Sugar talks about it, right? It's like the busiest intersection in Tokyo or what have you. But I do think the episode's playing on also a lot of things crossing one another and so on in
Yep.
terms of the plot movement and all of that kind of thing. So, what do you think of the episode compared to last week in terms of your enjoyment?
Mixed, I think would be
Yeah,
a fair way to say it. A lot going on. Um, they're trying to add layers of drama, humor, suspense. I think even some action. As much of the story was trying to do a lot, I think just the whole, the entire production was trying to do a lot in this one. I'd say I didn't enjoy this episode as much as I did the first two.
yeah, agreed.
Um,
I agree.
and maybe that's just because it didn't feel like we really went anywhere with we're trying to solve this missing persons case.
Right, but it is an odd two things to say back to back. A whole
Yeah.
lot's going on and nothing really happened.
Yep.
Right, it was like it's very busy and it didn't really go anywhere.
Yep.
But let's work through it. Maybe we'll appreciate it more as we
Maybe.
discuss it. I mean, I didn't hate it or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's just kind of like okay, this episode's there. It's kind of moving pieces around,
Hmm.
and then I am curious to see well where do we go from here. Probably the biggest question, if we want to jump to it, is the one you mentioned at the end of your summary. What exactly is going on in terms of Ruby calling Dr. Vickers, who we haven't seen? She keeps wanting Sugar to go see him.
Yes.
And maybe up to this point, you were thinking, well, he's just a doctor who's going to check out that shaky arm thing.
Hmm.
More's going on clearly with this Dr. Vickers. And there's some connection to Stallings. Like it's a problem that Sugar is on to Stallings, implying that Stallings is tied up with whatever Ruby and Vickers and the mentioned but unseen Miller
Hmm.
are up to in the background. And I don't really know what to do with that.
Yeah.
This was something I didn't particularly like. This kind of move of like, oh, people you thought were the good guys on Sugar's side are actually tied up with the bad guy that was hitting that kind
Yeah.
of trope. I don't know about.
And it also seems fairly early and fairly underdeveloped to say Ruby, who's the man in the chair, the woman in the chair, the one who's sort of running things behind the scenes for Sugar is, we just barely have gotten to realize who this character is. And oh, actually, there's a nefarious side where she's trying to cover Stallings' track because Sugar's getting too close.
Right. And then she's like wiping his actual police records,
Yeah.
which she just told Sugar she would need more time to get her hands on. Of course, we don't know a ton about Stallings, and we don't know what he's into as a criminal, but I think we
Yeah.
do know enough to know that he is a very bad man.
He likes to make hand smoothies. We know that.
Yeah, he's going to stick Teresa's hand into a blender in order to get Melanie to talk before Sugar shows up. You know, um, in the previous episode, he described Clifford as like his right hand man.
Hmm.
All indications are that Clifford raped and murdered Carmen
Yes.
and was abusive towards her prior to that, and so on and so forth, right? From what Melanie says. She says that she helped Teresa get away from her abusive husband. She and Olivia were trying to help Carmen get away from Clifford, and so on. Um, Olivia goes to check on Carmen, finds that she's dead. No one's there. There's a gun on the counter.
Right.
And then Clifford comes with a body bag. She shoots him. Not terribly surprising there. That's kind of how I thought this all went. It is curious to me that they didn't call the cops. Melanie says Olivia didn't want to call the cops because she didn't want to bring more scandal to her family. But in the flashback, Olivia seems to be at one point in there saying something about how she's going to call the cops. All right. Any thoughts about all that?
Yeah, and it just seems like, and we reference this later and see this in the episode that Melanie and Bernie are certainly closer than she's letting on to Sugar, and so there's a sense of, um, yeah, I think that Melanie certainly is the one we're not getting the full story from. We're getting her version of it and how she wants to protect certain things, how she wants to protect whatever kind of relationship she does still have with Bernie.
Yeah.
And so it seems as though, yeah, I'm always, I would say, intrigued when we get this, what we see and what we hear things, and then sort of what's the truth. I think what we always have to rely on is what we see is the truth. And so now what does it mean for, I guess basically, why should we care that Melanie is saying her version of things and might still have a relationship with Bernie? Does that matter? Does she in deep with these people like Stallings? Does that impact what Sugar's trying to do?
Yeah, right. And I mean, she says she hasn't seen Olivia since that night.
Yeah,
Like, we see her helping Olivia put the body bag in the trunk of her car. Is it true that that's the last time Melanie saw her? Is
yeah,
it true that Melanie doesn't know where Olivia is? Did they discuss more of a plan, like that
yeah,
Olivia was going to just drive her car back and park it in her parking spot at her apartment complex with the body in the trunk
yeah,
and then disappear? That's a weird plan. Another question, what happened to that body?
yeah,
Follow up on that, right? Recall Sugar went back in episode 2, body's gone, he found a strand of hair. We don't really follow up on that
yeah,
question. Melanie goes to see Bernie and they seem quite chummy. It felt almost romantic, but we
yeah.
don't really go any further with that.
Yeah, and this is maybe one of my criticisms of this episode, and hopefully not the entire show in general, is that you introduce and are following the path of a fairly intriguing mystery. We've got this granddaughter and daughter of this famous Hollywood producer, famous Hollywood director, and there's an underworld that Sugar's going into to try to uncover what's happened here and to try to find her, and that's a intriguing mystery in of itself. To spend this whole episode then sort of seeing that background, but then just going straight into this whole mysterious, what is this group of people meeting at Ruby's house? It's like I'm fine introducing layers onto these stories, but I prefer to sort of stick with our initial intriguing mystery of how we're going to solve that.
Yeah. In a way, this episode did feel too short to me. I know last week I
Yeah.
was kind of
32 minutes or something. Yeah.
It was pretty short, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know last week I was saying I like that. I like short episode. But you got to like do the work, and somehow it almost feels like this one's short because they're like, well, we don't want to go too far in this one. We're
Yep.
holding back. Like on every plot line, it's kind of holding back from whatever the next move is going to be. So, maybe that's fair enough, but maybe that's part of our certain level of dissatisfaction. It feels a bit incomplete, and particularly when you're
Yeah.
releasing the show week to week, it's not as though your normal viewer, as it were, could just go right on to the next episode.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
if this had been released on a binge model, I would imagine pretty much everyone would just like go ahead and hit play on the next episode. And it's a hard point to hit in terms of what's the difference between something that where you want to do that, but you have to wait a week and it's kind of compelling to have to wait a week. You're going to be thinking about it all week
Hmm.
versus this, because I don't think this is quite that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
No,
it's just
I
some
don't.
stuff happens, and
I find
but
myself thinking a lot more about what did I just see as opposed to what do I think is coming. And I think that's a flaw if you're going to do this week to week and try to make it part of a conversation.
yeah, how does this all fit together? And
Yeah.
well, so we've got a couple of other things to dig into. Davy and Kenny, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
they've been tasked with looking into sugar. Kenny seduces, or I mean, they've got a previously established relationship, I think, with this guy Everett, who works the NSA, who looks into sugar. But we don't find a whole lot that's terribly interesting out through that
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. He had a dad. He has a mom. There's one sibling, which we've heard referenced in previous episodes. Mom lives in Flagstaff, Arizona. That's basically it, I think.
Right. So the most interesting things, besides his life being kind of weird, you
Yep.
know, is that they mention he has a sibling. They don't give a name. So we're filling in that it's Jen.
Mm-hmm.
They don't actually say that.
Yep.
I don't know if that's anything to read into. They talk about his mother being in Flagstaff, and as the episode ends, Dave and Kenny are going to go to see her.
Right.
But I did want to point this out. It was pretty explicitly said in the premiere episodes that this woman, Helen, is not actually his mother.
That's correct. Yeah, I've completely forgotten that.
Yeah. So he makes some quip like, they think she's my mother or whatever, right? She
Yeah.
sent him a
Yeah.
card or letter or whatever. Um, so again, there is a question there, and I am curious about where that goes. I really appreciated the scene where Davy goes to talk to Bernie.
Did you know that these French words that are actually the English words say this in English when you re-engineer the words? Yeah.
The French words, which are cognates for English words, right? That's the first step of the joke. It's like it's like it's straightforward. And then, do you know what polyglot means? And oh, look, fair enough. Not everyone knows what polyglot means. I'm not, saying I expect your average everyday person to be familiar with the word polyglot, but it's
Yeah.
not um, uh, deep investigation to use a dictionary.
No.
And he
No.
kind of acts like it is.
Dad, look what I found out. Look where,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
So
baby. And we get some, I don't know, confirmation, but I mean, it's one more step towards confirmation. We got Anna Gunn for about 3 seconds in this episode,
yeah,
not very much, but she's talking, her character Margit is talking to Bernie. They're talking about Davy, and he's gotten himself into some trouble. And she's something to the fact that tell me who it is.
yeah. I'll make
Buy
sure
her
she
off.
doesn't talk.
Yeah, make sure she doesn't talk, buy her off, and make sure we don't hear from her again. So that's just confirmation that Davy's gotten him into some pretty bad stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. But then, back to something you kind of asked before, what is the interest that Bernie and the rest of the family has in stonewalling Sugar? Is it just that they don't want him kind of kicking up dirt about the family in general?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, does Melanie share that interest, perhaps?
See, I think that that's got to be a connection somewhere, that she is tied into the family somehow, tied into some business, some dealings, something that they've done. That's what some of the things that she's hiding. That's why she still has the relationship, and that's why she can't or won't sort of give all the details to Sugar, even though she's feeling some connection to him, but won't give him everything.
Right. And then so maybe she convinced Olivia not to call the cops.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
and then again, maybe she knows more about what's going on with Olivia now than she's letting on.
Hmm.
But I mean, the thing is, okay, so in terms of dirt around the Siegel family, we know about Davy's sexual misconduct.
Yes,
Presumably that's what it is. It has never been said explicitly, that explicitly.
correct.
But yeah, it sounds like it. Is that it? No, I don't think that's it. There's gotta be
Yeah,
other stuff.
there
Gotta be
has
other
to be
stuff.
something else. I mean, that wouldn't necessarily predicate um Olivia leaving unless she found out. So I mean, threatened to uncover something, tell something. I just it doesn't connect to that for me.
That doesn't connect. And also just the worries about sugar, you know, opening up closets with skeletons in them, or however we
Mm,
might put it. I mean, the stuff with Davy, as unfortunate as it is, that's the kind of thing in the real world is often kind of known.
yeah,
But oh yeah, but they didn't actually get in trouble, right?
yeah,
Or there was no actual lawsuit or whatever, right? And they want to avoid that actual kind of legal trouble where it kicks up dust as a scandal. But often that's kind of known, and you could presume that there are rumors out there
yeah,
about this kind of stuff in the public consciousness already.
yeah,
If, as Margit says, right, if the victims aren't going to pursue legal action
yeah.
with that kind of thing, nothing happens. It's the kind of case legally, to my understanding, where basically the victim
Correct.
has to be willing to press charges and so on and so forth, right? So there's got to be more than that. What is it? Kind of left with that big question. We're left with a
Yeah,
lot of big questions.
a lot of big question. And if you don't mind me going this way, a lot of another big question I have is who are these people that are at Ruby's?
Yeah, no,
I
let's go
mean,
there.
are these benevolent spies? Are these people that have, used to sell insurance and now they're multilingual, just sort of, you know, investigators? What are they? What do they do? Why does Ruby have this like typewriter that she enters in information? It just a lot of wild things happening there.
It definitely seems implied that they're involved as a group in some kind of collective project that's not missing person cases,
Yeah,
not just like we're a private investigator collective or
right,
something. Some of
exactly.
the things that are said, it just doesn't fit. This guy, Henry, Sugar talks to at the party, he's like an anthropologist.
Yeah, yeah, but also not sleeping well. And so why, what's the connection there? What do their jobs, various jobs have to do with that? And it doesn't sound like they're both private investigators. So,
Right, because Sugar's not sleeping well. He's
yep.
sure to mention to us he's having nightmares and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Um, yeah, just what's going on. It's more, we get a
Yeah.
question. They speak a
Yeah.
whole bunch of languages. Why? I mean, maybe it's something like what you said about a group of benevolent spies, but
Yeah.
that's like Davy's theory, and Bernie laughs at him about it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But we're just not given much more to work with. As you say, then the point of the party almost seems to be in the debriefing.
Yeah.
I guess each of them is going to do this. We only see Sugar do it, but Henry asks him something like, "Have you gone yet?" Like each
Yeah.
of them, implying each of them are going to do it. He's got a notebook. Ruby gives him grief because the notebook's supposed to be an objective account of interpersonal experiences or something. Okay, um, but instead, he's been musing about Shibuya Crossing and how UFO is an underrated rock band and So it's very subjective. But if we presume maybe that's the path to go down, if we presume it's supposed to be that kind of objective account,
Mm-hmm.
any ideas here at all about what might be going on? As you noted, she ends the episode entering it on a
Yeah,
typing it up.
I think this must. We've talked about how even headlines when before the show came out talked about big twist coming. I think this must have to do with that. You know, if we wanted to, we could speculate on what those things might be, but there's something wild coming, and it's got to relate to this. Of these are well, we can do that in a minute, but there's something not entirely on the straight and narrow with all the people in this room, all the people at this party, right? There's something amiss about each one of them, something that's wrong, something that they're trying to overcome. And if Sugar is a representative of that group, just being able to, he just wants to sit at a busy intersection and record his feelings. He wants to record his thoughts on different rock bands. I won't speculate yet. Maybe we can do that, but it's something to do with that, I feel.
Has to be something to do with that. Are
Yeah.
you suggesting that perhaps a society is like some really bizarre form of therapy?
I'm suggesting that the group of people might actually be humans. That's one of my theories.
What is it? What do you mean? Might
That
actually be humans?
these are they're supposed to record things in a notebook to try to express feelings and thoughts like they were humans, that they are experiencing things, you know, with their health and with their vision and with their rhythm is supposed to have like sleep that are all off, and something is needs they need help get them back on track. That Ruby is
Hmm.
communicating with some group of people that or some organization or group that is responsible for this group, and that they are not at all what they think they are. Because
So you think they might be extraterrestrials, or are you thinking more like androids?
I could be convinced of either at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's follow this up.
I've seen people speculate that these are werewolves. I mean, we're talking wild theories
Oh,
right
I've
now.
seen that too because he like keeps looking at the moon.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So note to everyone listening, we have not watched Beyond episode 3. Neither of us
We have
have.
not.
We haven't read. I haven't even read these reviews.
Nope.
We know there's a twist coming because apparently the world decided it wasn't a spoiler to put that in the headline of preseason reviews. Um, all right, so okay, we work with this. So maybe they are aliens or androids or werewolves, and they're being trying to be acclimated to human life for some reason. Sugar's also an investigator.
They've been given
Um,
normal jobs. Maybe they have enhanced abilities to do certain things.
Maybe it almost fits better with the werewolf thing. Like maybe he was already a PI and then became a werewolf.
Yeah.
Um, Dr. Vickers, whoever he is related to this in some way. And
Yeah.
then Stallings, well, is also related to this in some way.
No idea.
Um,
No, can't circle that square yet.
we can't square that circle.
I
I
have no
almost had
idea.
I almost had a wild speculation. Sometimes I hit on this, like, what if it's this crazy, crazy line of nonsense.
I just so scrolling Twitter late one night the other night, ran across a TV critic who had assuredly been at the whole thing, you know, had access to, had been at the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so their tweet was, has anybody seen this whole thing? We have to discuss this right now, all capital letters. And so when you see something like that, you say, okay, something really crazy is coming. But so I think, what could the crazy thing be? Just looking for clues. I mean, I'm probably completely off base here, but it just there's something about this people that connects them, or this group of whatever they are that connects them. And I don't know, they just don't seem altogether there in a lot of ways. Again, if Sugar is representative of that group.
Yeah, that there's more that connects them than an
Yeah.
appreciation of many languages.
Yes.
Yeah. Sugar feels he has to go to the party. Doesn't
Yes.
necessarily want to go to
Yes.
the party, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, he shows up, mingles a little bit, does the debriefing, leaves. And that's about where this leaves us. I don't
Yeah.
know. Is there anything we haven't hit on we should talk
No, it just
about?
leaves us with a lot of questions. I mean, I think that's sort of the theme of this episode. Many things raised, very few answered.
Yeah. One more thing, going back to what we were talking about before, which maybe I almost already said, but whatever the connection between Ruby and Vickers and then Stallings, maybe the worry is that Sugar, through his investigation into Olivia, is going to find out what the deal is with this polyglot society. Like maybe he
Yeah.
doesn't know,
Yeah.
and he's at risk of finding out that thing that's ultimately going to be the big twist, right? So, like, the way we proceed is he does find out, oh no, I'm a werewolf, something like that.
I think that's always the more interesting angle of that story is the alien slash android slash creature doesn't know that they are that thing, and they're trying to assimilate those things with amongst these other group of people. And how will they find out? Will they find out? I mean, that's an angle we've seen before. Who knows if we're going there?
Cool. Yeah, well,
Anyway,
looking
we'll
forward to
see.
it.
Five more to go.
Yeah, we'll work through the rest of the season here. And I guess that about does it for this time. So we'll be back next week talking about Sugar episode 4. Title is Starry Eyed. In the meantime, you can read my recap here of episode 3. Follow the site on social media, TV Obsessive. Check out tvobsessive.com. Read other stuff on there. And please do, if you enjoyed the podcast, consider leaving us a good rating and review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, press that thumbs up, what have you, and we'll see you next week.
All right. So looking forward to it. See you then.